Six Sages Gaming is brought to you by GamersGauntlet.net. Check them out for all your single, sealed product, and playmats.
Hey guys, welcome to another Six Sages Gaming Deck Spotlight, brought to you by GamersGauntlet.net and Ultimate Guard. So a lot of you have been asking for the Dark Shion list that we played in a recent, or I guess not recent now, it's a few weeks ago, Duel series, and a lot of this is actually the same shell as also the Gil Lapis deck that we played in the Duel series. The only difference is obviously you take out some of the 1-ofs or 2-ofs because you don't have Hydromonica, but a lot of it is the same shell. So if you're looking for a Gil Lapis deck, you might put in Globes, and it's still, you know, a very similar list. So this was our first incarnation of the Shion list that we've been working on. Chase and Ackerman built this version of it basically. I think Chase was the main person behind it. And then Daryl went off and made his own version. You saw the list that he had made. That's more like the accelerate version that we like to call it versus the dark Shion list that this is. So first I'll talk about the ruler, then I'll talk about the stone base, and then finally go into the main deck. So up first we have the ruler of the deck, the Songstress of Shangri-La, or just Shion as everyone knows her. Again, on the front side, nothing too exciting. You get to look at the top card every time, or at any time that's relevant for the different effects in her deck, with between Muse, Hydromonicas, Judgment, and all that good stuff, and then a very basic cost of 1 water and 2 to flip. And then of course when she Judgments, she turns into Shion. And what's really important about this, and obviously is the theme of the deck and why she's so strong, is if you have a 5-drop or less on top of your deck, you get to play it for free. Now again, when we have things like Celestial Wing Seraph and Lucifer, that's a pretty good combination to play. And it's also very relevant to mention that since we do play Demon Swords and Apollos and things like that, her God Art is also a way to deal 1400 damage and have it go quote-unquote unblocked. Because they would try to block with something, you can just God Art, remove it from blocking, and then they're taking 1400 damage. So this is a very strong ruler on 2 different aspects. 1, it can be a very aggressive J ruler, and 2, it allows you to flip something like, again, Seraph to get Lucifer, or Arthur, or even a Valentina Puppet Monarch can be super relevant in certain times. So the fact that she has a Judgment of 3 and can produce so much value is why everyone is absolutely loving her right now. So going on to our stone base, since I mentioned this is the more dark version of it, we play 2 Black Moon's Memoria. Again, we want darkness attributes, so we can play our Soul Hunts, we can play our Barriers, and also it produces Moon, which can be very relevant for things like Lucifer's life gain ability, or Izanami's discard a card from the graveyard effect. And keep in mind, she does have an errata that you have to remove her when you do these things, but it's still a very good effect to have. So it's definitely worth playing 2 Black Moon's Memoria. I think when we get dual stones, people are still going to be trying to figure out a way to put those in their decks. Up next, we have 4 Hymnal's Memoria. If you watched our other video, this stone is just way too good. Comes into play, it basically says draw a card, it produces water, which is obviously your primary attribute for at least the Judgment cost, and we do play a lot of darkness spells, so I guess it's like a 50-50 depending on what we're playing. So that's very relevant, and just the card advantage that you get from this that your opponent can't interact with is also super relevant. Turns out getting to draw cards for free is just good, or getting to draw cards because you're playing the game. And then lastly, 4 Rulers of Moria. Again, pretty much every good deck that's in Alice Cluster is going to be playing 4 of these because we need to have access to different attributes, and allows us to have better sideboarding options. So this is definitely something that everyone should have their common play set already, and I think even when we get dual stones, depending on what kind of cards we might see, I strongly feel that Ruler's Memorial will still see some kind of playability, even with dual stones, because there's a lot of J rulers that already want to have a lot of regalia, like Shion. Now, because we had just mentioned that, we'll go into the main deck itself now. Speaking of regalia, 4 Hydromonicas. Again, this is just an auto-include in every Shion list. It lets you filter the top card, it lets you Judgment, put something on, or I'm sorry, put something on top to pay 1, and then you can Judgment, put it right into play, and then you can just discard extra effects for, or extra cards for an effective to draw an extra card. So it's great that, you know, in this list you probably only need 1 in play. On the other list you want a 2 because you're playing Lay the Foundation, which can be super relevant. But in this one, since we're not really doing that much manipulation, I think just having 1 in play and getting to discard the other 3 for value is pretty good. Again, if you're thinking about the game and you're knowing that you're going to flip multiple times, then obviously you want to keep these because you can then set the top of your deck multiple times and get even more value out of Shion's Judgment. Which makes her so good is because if you have a way to give her imperishable, it makes things really, really awkward for your opponent. Speaking of ways to give her imperishable, we have 2 Demon Sword. Again, card's just great. Swiftness, Banish it to give imperishable, which again is just insane value in Shion. Can give extra damage, which is also super relevant for when we're doing things like Apollo. So as I mentioned earlier, you can God Art, get plus 400 damage effectively. You can tap Leviathan multiple times if you have multiple Resonators to get rid of. And then you can just have Apollo in the field so you can fly over the top and, you know, very easily do 2,000 damage flying, quote-unquote, unblockable in the air. And that's definitely a number of times that people have died to that and is surprisingly strong. This deck has a lot of flying Resonators or flying attackers. Finishing out Regalia, because we have so many for Ruler's Memoria, we have one Maribel, just a great way to destroy other Regalia that we don't want to have to deal with. And then one of Horn of Sacred Beast. Anytime, and I cannot stress this enough, anytime you're playing a more mid-range control type of deck, you always want to have one Horn just so you can recycle through your deck or reshuffle your graveyard into the deck and get those cards again. Obviously, you have to be careful if you're removing cards like Izanami and things like that, but I think it's worth including no matter what. Moving into our 1-drops, we have 2 Barriers of Shadow. Card's just insanely good in Alice Cluster. I really don't think much needs to be said about it. When everyone's playing Ruler's Memoria, everyone's playing Regalias, and this card can really heavily shut down the other Shion version, which is why the deck also plays 2 Blessed Holy Wolf's main. And if they're wasting a Hydromonica to tutor up a Blessed Holy Wolf so they can, you know, do what their deck wants to be doing, you're pretty much coming out ahead on that trade anyways. For other 1-drops, we play 4 Soul Hunts. Card's just great. We have 8 different discard targets, or 7 off the top of my head, that we don't mind discarding, and we have things like Alice's Little Scout we don't mind banishing. So overall, we can just put our opponent behind, and for a very cheap Darkness attribute, you know, get that good 2-for-1 them, and then, you know, 2-for-1-ish ourselves, depending on if we discard Spacetime, Anomaly, Izanami, you know, things we don't care to discard. And then Alice's Little Soldier, kind of just need another 1-drop, want to put something to play. Draws a card when it dies, can chump block when necessary. This is obviously a flex spot, but I think it's pretty good in terms of wanting to have more 1-drops in the deck that actually do something. Again, drawing extra cards is never bad. Going into our 2-drops, 3 Muse. This card is just absolutely great. Again, comes into play, draws a card, protects your guys, so that your opponent has to do lethal damage. And if you get to live the dream and have Muse and Arthur, if your opponent doesn't have a way to immediately remove it, or they're playing Reflect and can't immediately bounce it, chances are they're going to lose their entire board, and you're going to be able to just win the game on the spot if you get to resolve that. So great to have. Continuing with the draw cards trend, we have 3 Heras. This is just great because it allows us to, again, deal with bows or deal with other things that we don't want to run into, and we get to draw a card off of it. So that is always a great card to have. 5/5 body, maybe not the biggest, but can still get there in the more control-y kind of games. Speaking of Izanami, for about 10 different times now, we finally have Izanami the 2-drop. Again, you have the moon so we can make them discard a card and just out-card advantage our opponent, since we have, you know, half the deck that basically says draw cards. She's a 6/6 body on turn 2, which isn't the worst. Obviously, still dies with Lancelot's ping ability, but can still be a decent blocker on turn 2. And if she chump blocks something and then goes to the graveyard, that's where you wanted her anyway, so it works out and increases your effective life total for the game. And finally, 4 Spacetime Anomaly. Again, I can't stress enough how much I absolutely love this card. Again, probably top 3 cards from the set. Basically getting to pay 4 to remove anything and draw 2 cards feels great. And again, because it has red in it, you know, it's obviously 1 card equals a removal spell plus drawing 2. So you actually get to +1 off of this. Yes, it's a little bit more color restrictive, especially with this stone base, and it might be a little awkward to cast it at times, but more often than not, it's going to do what you want it to do. And you know, if you really need to, you can cast it once in your draw step, untap, cast it again, and just remove something that way. And then lastly, going into our tutor targets or Shion targets or whatever you want to call them, pretty much the standard list. We play 1 Valentina. This is great if they have some kind of just insane resonator that's huge. It's a behemoth, if it's a Lancelot with like 4 necromancies on it somehow, what have you. You can steal with Valentina, swing at them with it, or if they go to somehow remove your Valentina, you just banish their resonator to Demon Sword anyways, and then they don't get it back. So she goes somewhere between either you never want to see her in a match to actually really, really, really amazing in a match, and that's why it's only a 1 of. Again, we can tutor for it if we really need it, but there's just also a lot of times where she's awkward or doesn't do enough compared to the rest of the cards. One of Arthur, pretty standard. Again, follows the same principle as Valentina. If you're going against a red deck and they don't have a way to, answer immediately, it's going to feel great. But there is, more and more people are going with different options or final forfeits out of the sideboard or, different options that they'll have to be able to answer Arthur and then just swing through and win anyways. But again, the fact that you can become a 12-2000 can definitely be super relevant and put your opponent behind if you get to effectively board wipe them. And then you still have, let's assume at worst they sacrifice their entire board to kill the Arthur, you still have a Shion in play. Lastly, pretty standard, we have play 3 Lucifer. Comes into play, banishes one of the resonators, and again has a life gain ability which can be super relevant in some of your matchups. So that's always going to be great to play. And then lastly, the thing you're probably tutor target number 1 for when you want a Judgment is Celestial Wing Seraph. Again, when she comes into play, you get to search your deck for, guess what, that Lucifer that we just showed, and they are really the best of buds in Alice Cluster, especially in the Shion deck list. I am not sure of a better combination in terms of a 5-drop that you're putting into play. Basically, getting to Judgment, you have a 900-1000 Shion, getting the Seraph, then you have a 1000-1000 body with flying, no less, and then you get to find a 900-900 body with flying, and your opponent loses a Resonator, is super relevant, especially if they only have like a suited up Lancelot or they have only like one big Resonator in the field. It's going to be a huge tempo swing for you, and you're going to feel like $1 million out of that, coming out so far ahead from your opponent. So that's all we have, guys. We didn't really get the opportunity to build a dedicated sideboard for this one. We just kind of wanted to throw the deck together to showcase for you guys since a lot of people were asking for it. Kind of more obvious inclusions, some kind of Bless the Holy Wolves in the sideboard to deal with opponent's barriers if you want to go that way, or some kind of addition removal. You want to have a couple extra Heras, maybe, or one extra Hera, sorry. You want to have Death Scythes if you're going against aggressive J-Ruler strategies, because turns out Shion can do work, and her God Art will kill every opposing J-Ruler except for Gil Lapis with the Moon. 14, yeah, except Gil Lapis with the Moon, if I'm not mistaken. A Moon plus obviously something else. So she is can be very, very aggressive, and you should definitely be looking at a few different lists with her. And again, just thanks to Ruler's Memoria, we get to splash all the colors that we want to, so that really helps out with opening up the sideboard and giving us more options. Now again, a lot of people are worried about Black Moonbeam, for example, but then you just can splash Wind Secluded Refuge very easily with this deck, so that's something to keep in mind as well. And again, with Shion, if you get to Judgment early and they waste their turn playing Black Moonbeam, you're probably going to be fine because they still have to answer a Seraph and a Lucifer package. So that's something that is very good going forward, and why Shion is still going to be one of the top rulers to pick. I know everyone's on Necro Lance, and Refrain is still going to be very, very strong. Don't misunderstand me, but Shion has a lot of value in her, and I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of her with the next set. So, as always, thank you very much for watching, guys. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe to the channel for future Force of Will content, and let us know in the comments below specifically what rulers or what decks or what duel series you guys want to see next. If you have a list that you want to send us, please email us at ggforceofwill@gmail.com, and we'll be happy to showcase decks as well. So, this is Matt again on behalf of the rest of the Six Stages Gaming team. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll catch you on the next Deck Spotlight. Have a good one, guys.
Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to hit that like button and leave us a comment with what you thought of the video. Don't forget to subscribe to Six Sage Gaming and check out some of the deck spotlights, duel series, and Force of community videos that are already on the channel. We also have a Facebook and a Twitter, so feel free to find us there. Lastly, if you have a deck that you would like featured in a video, be sure to drop us a comment below. Until next time, take it easy.